This week we invite you to join us into a town full of mystery, secrets, and a lot of secret societies apparently. This is The Suspense Story by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. This book is Gideon Falls. Hello, this is John with Brainstorm Comics and Gaming.
Chandler.
And this week we are reviewing Gideon Falls. This is a book that focuses a lot on conspiracy, secrets that a small town has, lots of idiosyncrasies of a small town, but overall, good versus evil.
Yes, and it has a very Twilight Zone feel to it.
Yes. The writer is Jeff Lemire. The artist is Andrea Sorrentino. I think they're definitely a very good team together.
Absolutely.
Also, one of the first things I wanted to mention is Gideon Falls, the graphic novel, is only $9.99. It's the first 6 issues. Image does a very good job of making the first volumes very affordable for people. I think it's definitely worth the $10, if not more.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a bargain.
If you had bought the individual issues, you would have spent $24 on it. So we'll start off by talking about the first issue, and then we'll go and talk generally about the remaining 5 issues. Try and leave some story left for you to delve into. And there definitely is a lot to delve into. So the story begins with Norton, who's this guy who's visiting a psychiatrist. He's searching around town gathering pieces of trash, refuse. Yeah, he finds nails, pieces of wood. What else did he say he found?
It's mostly pieces of wood and nails, but you don't necessarily know that at first because he literally just looks like he's dumpster diving around in trash, and then especially from his therapist's point of view, that's what he's doing, is just digging through trash.
So this is our 5-page introduction to him. We don't even know about the psychiatrist at this point. That's just him digging through the trash in the city. And then the next 5 or 6 pages, we are introduced to Wilfred, or Father Fred, as he likes to be called. He's the new priest in town. He meets one of the town inhabitants named Jean, who he seems kind of, like, I won't say put off by, but like...
She's just very intense in the welcome, and he definitely seems like he's coming into town with a lot of baggage, and like he said, he's been shuffled from place to place, and he's, on the phone with a higher up person, and who he's saying, like...
The bishop, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's implied that there's some past stuff that's gone on with him that we're unclear as to what, but he's definitely got some baggage, and she's very, like, with the welcome wagon right away, and he's very much like, I just want to be alone and sleep.
Well, I think it's also supposed to be... Because during the conversation with the bishop, he's telling him, I don't want to be here. Send somebody else here.
Right.
And then this woman's like, oh, yeah, great, you're here. And he's like, just leave me alone. I don't want to be here. I'm not really played up for comedy, but
But there's some humor to it, in the sense that everybody can relate to that fact when you just want to be left alone and the person's just not quite getting the hint, and you don't want to be rude, and especially since he's the new town priest, he really doesn't want to be rude, but he's kind of, like you said, he's like, please leave me alone. I just want to, be alone with my thoughts for a minute. I just got here. Let me breathe for a second.
Exactly. So then we skip back to Norton, and this is the part where we are introduced to his psychiatrist, Dr. Zhu. He starts divulging to her that he's kind of slipping in his therapy. He had been committed, and he's been released, and so he's taking care of himself. He's out on his own, but he still visits her. I would assume more than once a week, but... Because he seems pretty needy with her in terms of the therapy. And she's concerned about him, that he is slipping, and warns him, like, hey, if you keep down this path, I'm going to have you recommitted to the psych ward. So she clearly cares about the guy. I would say it's even clear at this point, even more than a professional level, like on a personal level. Mm-hmm. Not romantically, just in terms of...
Right, it seems like it's one of the patients, just, like you see in anything that, if you're in it for the right reasons because you care about people and you want to help people, and she seems very much like she's very concerned about him because he was showing progress, and now it seems like he might not be, and that worries her because she wants him to be better. She wants him to not be living his life into her what appears to be a very sad waste of his time of just literally having all of these thoughts and just digging through trash, what for all we know, all day long.
Yeah, she thinks he's just obsessed with it, like he's kind of fixated on it. That he's digging through trash, and that's like his psychoses and all of that. And then we go back to the doctor, or to the father again. He's sleeping, only to be awoken. Oh, well, I guess we should backtrack a little bit. The whole reason he's in town is because the previous Father Tom, disappeared. Nobody will tell him exactly what happened. Well, the only person he's really met is Jean, but
all he knows is that he's dead, and they don't really want to talk about it.
Exactly.
And type of deal. And there also seems like they're not 100% sure. Where the bishop wouldn't let him know. He's just like, you're needed there now. The woman in charge, she said, she was like, forgive me, I was very close with him. And he's like, oh, I understand. Like, you don't have to go into it right now. And like you said, first stay there. He's under the impression that I'll find out eventually.
Exactly.
Not too pressed about it, but as you said, he's awoken by Father Tom.
Father Tom, yeah, he comes. He leads him out to the. So Father Tom leads him out to a clearing, and there he finds Jean, who is. What was it she exactly stabbed with? It looked like she was impaled by.
It was a bottle.
A bottle,
like the top of a bottle, okay. Which might be incantation, since we get the hint that Father Fred has a bit of a drinking problem, and it's one of those things where it lines up where you kind of, again, not humorous, but kind of like literally new person in town, you see this, and of course it's terrible, like a horrible image to see, but also like this feels a lot like I'm gonna be blamed for this type of thing. You get that feel already right from the get-go, where he's kind of like, this is terrible, but also like, crap, they're gonna think I did this type of deal.
And the thing is, he also sees a black barn. And I'll spoil a little bit of the second issue, in that in the second issue they reveal that he says that there is no black barn there. So they think maybe he was drinking or hallucinating or still dreaming, like right. He's still like in a waking state.
Which is where the sheriff reveals that they also know a bit of his history, and they've called and done some stuff where they're like, we're aware that you have a bit of a drinking problem, and they again they're like, there's been some issues that we know about, which again aren't revealed, but it's implied they know like why he's been shuffled around and stuff. So they're like, you're obviously the prime suspect. You're saying you've seen the guy who we know to be dead. You were the last one to see this person who we find out in a field where you say all of this stuff happened, and we can't find any of the things you said. So you can see how this looks very bad for you.
Yes. And so that was pretty much the first issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think that definitely lays the foundation for a lot of the mysteries and such going on in the series. It doesn't give you everything.
Right.
Just as I will say that Chandler told me that he feels like Brian Michael Bendis could take some lessons from Jeff Lemire in terms of not having much happen in a story, but still making it compelling. And
yes, like a slow burn. Like I said, I even talked to you. It's like, there wasn't even too much that happened right till the end, but I was so hooked, and I read like all the way through it, and then I looked back and I was like, almost nothing happened, but the dialogue and just the overall ambiance and everything was so compelling. I think it's also good to mention that Norton reveals to the psychiatrist in that first issue that he is plagued by these dreams that he's had since a kid of the Black Barn, of which Father Fred sees, even though these two men have never met, spoken to each other, they don't even know they exist yet. But what he's looking for is, what he believes to be pieces of that building that he feels like it's calling to him, it's dragged to him. So in the description they say that these men are kind of tied together into this barn where Norton is chasing it, wanting to find it, to be a part of it, and for Father Fred it's kind of, he's just thrust into it, has no idea about any of it, really doesn't want to be a part of anything, just wants to be, doesn't really even want to be there, but if he has to, just to give some sermons and to let no one bother him, but he's kind of thrust into this insane, impossible situation.
And I just want to say, like, part of the reason why I think it is compelling, I wouldn't quite call this a horror story, but it's kind of like on that fringe of being like a...
It's like, definitely more, I would say, suspense than horror and gore. Like, there's obviously, like we said, there's some blood and there's some unpleasant things, but it's not overly gory or drawn out. It's just what happens in the story and moving it along.
Yeah, and I think the thing that makes it compelling is it definitely focuses on the characters. Like, the Black Barn is definitely like this, like, menace in the background. It keeps appearing. Mm-hmm. It definitely is the through line for all these characters.
Right.
But like, it's not. It doesn't appear in like every panel. It doesn't.
Right. It's the whole book is Twilight Zone-esque, but it's not the Twilight Zone where you open the door and go through. It's not like at the beginning of every issue you open the barn door and you head inside, that type of deal. It's almost treated as its own, especially whereas Norton is concerned, the barn is almost like a character in and of itself, but it's one we have yet to meet other than stills and images, which I think is a really good literary choice of where it's such a strong presence, and as we go to find out, it has roots throughout this
centuries.
Town of Gideon Falls for a very long time.
For centuries. It also, like, the Black Barn's impact on the characters and everything. Like I said, it's all about this story is definitely all around about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they're definitely very well fleshed out. Like I said, even though Jean is only in the first issue, you feel like you know what she would do in other situations.
Right.
Also, that the church is a big part of her life. That it's kind of like her social aspect to her life. And so the rest of we'll talk about the rest of it, but very generally. So we still leave things for you to, like I said, discover on your own. Well, I'll ask you, who is your favorite character?
I would say for me, at least the most interesting, compelling character is kind of probably Father Fred for me, because as I said, he's just, he's also seems like he's got could be a prequel story about him that seems like could be just as interesting enough of his past and everything, and he's kind of one of those priests where it's not quite falling away from the faith, but definitely life has happened to him enough that he's like, I'm not as, zestful about the priesthood as I was. Like, this is more of like, this is my job now. It's not necessarily my passion. I'm not going to give it up, but you can tell life's kind of just kicked him and stuff has gone on. But that tying into it, and also when he's initially put in the situation, kind of how he reacts and chooses to pursue and what he does in the following issues, that kind of like draws me in and makes me think that this is a really good character, and this is somebody that I'd want to stick around to hear about.
And it does seem like he has like a crisis of faith. And I don't think it's an accident that he sort of befriends the atheists of the town. Sheriff, I forget what her last name is, Miller?
I think so, something like
that. I think
that.
it's like Sheriff Miller. She says, like, I don't believe in these fairy tales. And she's not just referring to church, she's also referring to like the Black Barn.
Right.
And all of that. My favorite character is Doc Sutton, mostly because like he makes the story go wider.
Yes.
He reveals that there's a secret society within the town that kind of like is battling the Black Barn. Mm-hmm. Some people don't believe in it. Some people do believe in it. He thinks it's definitely good versus evil.
Which is why he's so glad that the priest is here and that he's seen, and he may or may not believe that it's happening. Like, he's very much like, oh, like, good, we have you on our side, because he's very much of the mind that I don't know 100% what this is. It is evil, like, yes. Incarnate. It's, I don't know what exactly the powers and abilities it has, but it's not good for us.
Well, much like Norton, he has like a whole wall of pictures and newspaper clippings. He doesn't have the piece. Yeah, he doesn't.
All the strings attached and all that stuff that you see in every deranged person's bedroom.
He doesn't have the mason jars or whatever like Norton has.
True, he's not out looking through the trash, but he definitely has everything else, and it's definitely very clear that this is it's his life. Like, his name's Doc Sutton, not for no reason. He was the town doctor, but he said, like, I haven't practiced in forever because this has consumed his life.
And we found out like the Black Barn definitely had a big impact on his life also. Absolutely. I won't reveal that.
Yes.
Because that ties into other characters
very
also.
Interesting turn of events and character development, yeah.
But it's also very interesting that it seems... this is going to be a light spoiler. Well, kind of... I'll try and straddle it a little bit. It seems like Norton and Father Fred's group is going to have two very different goals in the story.
I would say so. They're both connected to the barn, but they're not necessarily going about it or towards it with the same intentions.
Exactly. And it isn't necessarily that one is evil, it's just that they want...
different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's like towards the end, so I don't want to go too deep into it.
Can't give details because it's very interesting. It's very good.
So I'll ask also, what was your favorite part of the...
I would say for me, honestly, I mean, I'm very familiar with Jeff Lemire. Lemire?
I say Lemire. It might be Lemire.
I don't know, but anyway, he's a really good writer, and I've read several books of his at DC and other companies. He doesn't just do independent. He's a very good writer. So anytime his name's on something, I'm much more inclined to read it. But also so the story was very, very good, as we said, but the art by Andrea Sorrentino, who I was not familiar with, is very compelling. She, much like we talked about when we reviewed Skyward, where the art kind of made you really get sucked into this world, her art and overall color scheme really makes you feel like once you jump in and start reading, that you're in Gideon Falls with them. And then as certain other elements with the Black Barn, where I said it feels more Twilight Zone, the art sort of breaks its normal paneling and different flows and different parts, and to the point where it really helps drive the story and really shows, the power and what's happening to these people both physically and mentally. And so the art's definitely a really big part of the story, where if somebody else was doing it, it might not be as compelling.
I know you said you prefer traditional artwork where like the panels line up appropriately, easier to follow, but
Right.
this one definitely requires that sort of more surreal, sort of experimental type art.
Right, and I think it was even very clear that I noticed that for different characters, she does that in different ways. Whereas with Father Fred, he's not seeing a psychiatrist. He's more put together men. So a lot of his, especially in the beginning, are just standard, like blocks or whatever. But a lot of time when we see Norton, even in his apartment, there's panels on top of panels. There's other stuff, and it's almost like you're seeing into his head where he's got a million things going on at once, and he's thinking about, while he's in a room, he's only thinking about these certain things. And I think it really helps you get to know the characters really, really a bit more. It seems like she's very aware of the characters and how they think.
I felt bad for Sorrentino for the 1-2 page spread that they did, and that there was 50 panels on that one.
It was a lot. It seems like she put in a lot of work, but it definitely pays off.
No, it was well done. I was
just but yeah, it did. I hope she got paid overtime.
Because when they're in the house, they do the close-ups of a character and the other people. I don't want to spoil as to who went into the house, but I would say my favorite part was probably when the psychiatrist started to experience things that made her not doubt Norton as much. I feel like in a lot of stories, especially like TV shows, movies, like it's instantaneous. Oh, okay, now I believe you.
Right.
She does not instantly believe him.
Yeah, so it definitely seems that she can't quite believe him because he's her patient. She wants to help him, and what he's saying sounds completely nonsensical.
Yes.
And talking about a haunting black barn that he's had dreams about since childhood, and he has to find pieces. It sounds once at the premise, and if once you believe that, then there's nothing wrong. Then she can't help him when she clearly is of that mind, where it's not friend to friend, where you might be more inclined to. It's still doctor to patient, and she's looking at him as somebody who's sick that needs help.
But she's trying to justify it in her mind when she has that experience. Like, no, I didn't see it, Yeah.
And I think, like you said, she handles it, and Jeff Lemire writes it as a normal, rational person, not like in a movie where they just go okay, and tag along for it. It's no, this can't be real. Okay, it was late. She's thinking in all her head, how can this be what I'm seeing?
Maybe it's the mass,
what happens? Not
hypnosis, but I forget what she refers
right.
to it. Mass psychosis.
Besides, okay, this is real now. She's, like you said, she's definitely justifying.
Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss about the?
Nothing other than the sense that, like you said, it's very, you get a lot for your money for this. Image did a good job of putting this book out. Like you said, it would have been a lot more expensive issue by issue, but you get 6 issues, which is, large. Some collections only have 4, so that's a pretty good size. It tells definitely the whole beginning sort of story to get you involved in this universe. It's very well written. The art plays a very big part of getting you to feel like you're a part of this town of Gideon Falls, and you're invested in these characters and their story. And I think it would be, like you said, it's got horror elements, but it's not really a horror book. So if you go, oh, I don't like horror, I don't read horror, I don't really myself either, and it is not a deterrent in any way. It's definitely more suspense, and like you said, very, very character driven. It's not about any bad things that happen. That's sort of just events, how they play out. And it's, like I said, it's not overly gory, it's not gruesome, it's horror in the sense that it's got that suspense element, but overall I would say
kind of like Alfred Hitchcock.
Right, I would say more of that, and even more like mystery, and almost kind of noir, to the point where Father Fred almost becomes this sort of detective trying to figure this out, that he doesn't want to.
I would say even like a Stephen King sort of thing, again, not like It or anything like that.
Right. But definitely has those elements. But yes, it's very well written. The art is very well done, and it's a good story that I think anybody would like to check out.
I would say, as a warning though, because I know some people prefer books that they get a whole story in. There definitely is not a whole story.
It definitely leaves it leaves you wanting more, and there is a bit of a cliffhanger, but it's a good kind. It's exciting that there's more to come, and there definitely is more to come. They're working on more issues.
Yeah, I'm not saying that as a negative. I definitely like the book a lot. I just know there's a lot of people out there who want
right. It's not a complete story.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not a front to back book. It's the first part of what looks like a really, really interesting story.
Yes. So definitely, if you guys are into suspense, or even if you're not into suspense, if you just like good writing, good art, definitely check this one out. Like I said, $9.99 is a great price point. Normally, if you had bought the individual issues, it would be $24. I'm looking forward to seeing where these characters go from here. There's definitely a lot more for them to mine. So hopefully you enjoyed watching the video, and we will see you next time.